Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about immunity through the lens of astrology. And as I start this discussion, I am really amazed by the complexity of this topic really, because immunity really has been extensively studied, researched, documented in the Western allopathic medicine system, which is modern medicine. And immunity finds a lot of echoes also in Ayurveda. However, the constructs are going to be different and the concepts are different. And in a discipline as ancient and as divine as Jyotish, uh, again we find the concepts of immunity embedded, as it were, in some of the Jyotish concepts, and they only need a kind of a reinterpretation. Okay, so this is an attempt towards that. So with this, I want to just tell you once again that I'm a medical doctor and I'm deeply interested in medical astrology as well. So that means I'm a modern allopathic doctor. I'm studying and researching Jyotish, and Jyotish and Ayurveda are both Vedangas and in a way conceptual siblings. So therefore, I'm interested in Ayurveda also to the extent that it benefits my understanding of medical astrology, and I hold modern medicine in high esteem. Okay, and this should not be construed as any kind of a message otherwise. So with this disclaimer, let me now basically go quickly to the larger picture of what is immunity, because we need to first understand what we are talking about. It means different things to different people, and I hope to be shedding some light on the different aspects of immunity, and I'm sure that you will find your own meaning of immunity also in my talk. So, if you see the slide in front of you, and I don't really want you to focus on the slide but focus on my talk. So, at a very basic level, if you look at immunity in the modern sense would mean the body's ability, whether intrinsic or extrinsic, or intrinsic or um, uh, otherwise, to fight against external harmful influence or internal damaging mechanisms. So basically, uh, that is what is immunity from the allopathic perspective. Okay, now there are two parts of this really. There is something which is innate or intrinsic. Okay, so that's related to what is called the state of homeostasis, that is the state of being well. Okay, so that is what is called as intrinsic immunity. And then there is immunity which has to be acquired, or which gets acquired because of the influence of external pathogens, or some sort of a disturbance in the status quo of the body. So that is what we call as acquired immunity, very simply. Okay, so it's related a lot to things like lifestyle changes, or basically circumstantial influences. You suddenly go in a cold weather and you develop a running nose, so that's also kind of an immune response. It could be like acquired immune response, just to simplify things for you. Now, uh, if one were to look at Ayurveda, okay, the the terminology in Ayurveda for immunity is Vyadhik Shamatva. Okay, so here if you deconstruct that word Vyadhik Shamatva, Vyadhi is a disease. Shamatva is the phenomenon of disease being repressed or suppressed or decimated. Okay, so again, Vyadhik Shamatva therefore is self explanatory, and it has that peculiar Sanskrit flavor. It conveys that what the word immunity does not really convey. So, in this again, you find similar concepts, similar kind of dimensions. You have something called as a Sahaja Bala. Sahaja means ease of strength. That is the body's natural innate immunity again. Then you have something called as Kalaja Bala. Kalaja Bala means that which is subject to the ravages of time. So that means that which is acquired, that which is temporal. So that is Kalaja Bala. And typically it comes down to two main sort of aspects. One is the quality of the life force. So there is something like an organism, and the organism is at a level of vitality. You can consider that a dimension of innate or intrinsic immunity, or what we call here sahaja bala. So this quality of the life force, the quality of the vitality, is it very high, is it low, is it middling, what? So the quality of the life force is one aspect of immunity, and we are going to be looking at that in detail. And then the other aspect is the quality of the processes, the metabolic processes in the body. So if a particular organism is not digesting, let's say, all the ingested material well, then one can imagine that there is a buildup of waste products or waste substances in the body, and that is going to be certainly affecting the overall immunity of that organism, right? So that's the metabolic process is not really efficient, or the metabolic process is very efficient. So that's what we mean by the quality of the metabolic processes. And you see, both of these concepts, life force and quality of metabolic processes, both of them are reflected in both modern allopathic medicine as well as Ayurveda. Now, in modern terminology, we call immunity as cellular immunity and humoral immunity. So, what does that mean? Cellular immunity means immunity because of certain uh, what we call um, protecting or defensive cellular components, in the blood. So basically these are the white blood cells typically, and maybe some specialized cells like natural killer cells, and these kinds of cells. So basically it's cellular immunity. It's what is very aggressive. You know if if let's say, if a bacterium or a pathogen enters a human being and it is creating a problem, then there is at the first level immediately cellular immunity will come into picture. The second level the immunity is what is called as humoral immunity. Humoral means pertaining to the antibody response, okay, which is again same as acquired immunity. So these are terminologies. You also call it active and passive immunity. Okay, so active immunity is when you give a myelitis polio vaccine, that is, you inject extremely attenuated, forms of the virus in the body of the, of the recipient, or you give it as a polio, as a oral polio vaccine, and that stimulates active immunity. And passive immunity is when you actually take an antibody. For example, you somebody gets infected, or somebody gets injured with a rusted iron, and then you take a tetanus toxoid. So that's an antibody. Okay, so that's passive immunity. So this is broadly what we need to understand about immunity, because if you understand all of this or some of this, we will be discussing in detail through Jyotish. And in Jyotish, there are karakas for immunity which need to be studied. So um, I'm going to be trying to create a bridge, you know, between the Jyotish karakas of wellness, immunity, with our modern understanding of immunity, as I have already been speaking. And this bridge is going to be a tenuous bridge. It's not going to be necessarily always a stable bridge. At times, we might have a feeling that we are going to be falling off the bridge, or maybe the bridge will not survive. But then, one thing is 100% sure, that there is a bridge, and we will cross over from this shore to the other shore using this bridge. Okay, so with this brief background about immunity, let me now take you uh, to the Jyotish part of immunity, and how do we understand that. And now, again, this part is going to be more suitable for those of you who have a prior knowledge of Jyotish. Okay, so that will help you. And for those of you who don't really have a lot of background knowledge of Jyotish, uh, try to understand to the extent possible. Try to understand the philosophical, conceptual aspects behind it. And it's okay even if you get don't feel abreast of all the small details, as long as you get a sense or a flavor of what we are talking. Okay, so you can enjoy this presentation. So with this background, now you see in front of you, I am going to be talking about the astrological significators of immunity. And the most important thing when we speak about any kundali, so there is a kundali in front of me, which is typically called the Lagna Kundali or the D1 chart. And now I have to opine about the wellness or the well-being of this person. The first immediate urgent thing to look at is the ascendant. Okay, so the ascendant is what we call lagna. Okay, and the ascendant is called the tanu bhava in Sanskrit, in Jyotish. So tanu bhava means the whole body in a sense. So um, things which are pertaining to the body, so bodily wellness, bodily discomfort, the body which the person has inherited at the time of birth is seen from the condition of the ascendant. So if you, when you look at the ascendant, you look at the lord of the ascendant, which is the Lagnesh. uh, the condition of the lord of the ascendant is very very crucial. And so first of all, is it a benefic, is it a malefic? Okay, if it is a benefic, it means it is Jupiter or Venus. If it is a malefic, it could mean Saturn, Mars, Rahu, Ketu. um, it could mean moon. Depends again, moon can be both a malefic and a benefic, and it can mean Mercury can be both ways. So basically the condition of the ascendant, whether the Lagnesh is in the 6th, 8th and the 12th houses, for example, you will find that then one has to carefully study further. You know, uh, we have to look at things like not just the lord of the Lagna, but also the lord of the nakshatra, lord of the ascendant. Okay, so if the ascendant, for example, it is, let's say, Aries Lagna, so the Lagnesh here is Mangal or Mars. But if it is Bharani Nakshatra, then the Nakshatra Adhipati here is Shukra. So the position of Shukra is going to be very important, for example, when you look at the condition of the ascendant. So I'm just giving you some indicative ideas. I'm sure we cannot cover all the details here, and we have to cover a lot of other ground as well. So I'm going to be basically talking of the key summaries. Again, aspects on the ascendant, the exact position of the ascendant, with which planets it is associated with or afflicted with or conjunct with, things like that will decide um, you know the quality of the uh, ascendant, and that will determine basically the body. Okay, again, whether the ascendant is in a earth, is it in a earth, or is it a earthy sign, is it a watery sign, is it a airy sign, it's a fiery sign, will matter. Okay, so generally, let's say if the ascendant is let's say earthy sign, say Taurus, and if the Lagnesh Venus is well positioned, one can imagine that this person will be strongly built. I mean, very very broadly speaking. Okay, and let's say somebody's ascendant is in a watery sign, and then you know and then the Lagnesh is in a fiery sign, then one could probably, and particularly in 6, 8, 12, then one could imagine that there could be some issues pertaining to health. So things like that can be ascertained from the ascendant. Now, the important thing here is that the ascendant is part of the trinity of sun, moon, and ascendant. So when we look at a kundali from the immunity perspective, okay, we look at the trinity. Okay, so the sun, moon, and ascendant respectively represent the soul, mind, and body. Okay, so at the soul level, sun, and when you say sun, sun is the one who has a body. So when I say today today, my body is tired, or my mind is stressed out today. That I who says that my body is tired and my mind is stressed out is the sun. It's like the witness consciousness. It's like he is the natural Atma Karaka. He is the soul in a sense. So the sun astrologically is the primal energy giver. So life on earth is possible because of the sun, uh, and all the planets are animated, can function fully well because of the luminosity of the sun. And the only reason we see sun in the kundali is because we are studying, basically we are having a geocentric approach when we study Jyotish, which means for us we are studying Jyotish standing or being located on earth, and although the earth and all the other planets are moving around the sun, relatively speaking, since we make earth our destination where we are located, therefore the sun also is relatively moving. So therefore sun is also in the zodiac for us. So therefore, but then sun is a primal energy giver. So that's a very important point. So condition of the sun will be vital. Sun is also directly a significator of things like the bone marrow. Okay. Sun also signifies the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. So the red blood cells. For example, sun exalted in Mesh, okay, if placed in, let's say, the Kendra, would indicate extremely good immunity for the person. Okay. Now the same sun exalted in Mesh, if placed in the eighth house, aspected or afflicted by malefics, would damage immunity as well. Okay, so sun is like a very sharp sword. We don't want the sword to cut us. Correct. So this is sun. Um, Moon is the mind. So moon is the reflected aspect of the sun, right? Moon reflects the sun's light, and moon is the mind. So we always hear of the body mind phenomenon. So it's like all functional disorders today have a have a mind connection. Correct. You can't really eliminate the observer bias here. It is the person who is not well mentally or who is stressed out. So the moon and the ascendant have got very close connections. So when you are studying a kundali, we always need to study it from the ascendant, and also the moon, the lagna kundali as well as the chandra rashi kundali. So moon is the mind, it's the personality. um, it is what is called as the, if the body is the annamay kosha, then moon is the manomay kosha. Okay. uh, so and therefore mind is susceptible to various kinds of influences, including karmic influences, and which are signified in the chart by the placement of Rahu and Ketu. So therefore the moon here, the mind, when I say mind I mean mind body phenomenon, is, if since it is susceptible to Rahu Ketu, if they are in some sort of adverse or mutually unacceptable or um, uncomfortable position or aspect, then naturally the immunity is going to be affected. Okay, and moon also represents the water element in the body. And remember, about almost more than 70% of the body is, or roughly 70% of the body is water, and the entire cellular communication, all the tissues, the blood, the lymph, everything is basically governed by the water element. Okay, so therefore moon is very important in terms of immunity. um, Now, as I said, sun, moon and ascendant. So the trinal relationship of the bhavesh of the sun, moon and ascendant will be very important. That means lagnesh, um, and you know um, the lagnesh position with respect to the sun and moon, certainly, and the lagnesh position also with respect to the lord of the fifth house and the lord of the ninth house. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Okay, so basically we need to look at the trinity very carefully, and specifically here the nakshatras occupied by the, as I said, the ascendant nakshatra the nakshatra occupied by the sun positioned in which nakshatra. I already gave you the example earlier of sun in Mesh Rashi, but in Bharani nakshatra, for example. Um, those are very important. So couple of things. One is that the nakshatras could, the nature of the nakshatras could determine the nature of the strength of the planet from the immunological perspective. Okay, so um, a strong malefic, a good malefic, but in a mrudu nakshatra, in a soft nakshatra, you know, would have a different effect. Say for example, um, sun. Again, I am giving the example of sun because sun is commonly studied for immunity. Say sun in um, Bharani nakshatra. Bharani is a Ugra nakshatra. Okay, or say sun in Magha nakshatra, again a Ugra nakshatra, um, has a different impact. Now, in case of Bharani, sun is also exalted in a Mesh. In case of Magha, sun is in Leo own house. Um, but these are Ugra nakshatras, so they would have a particular effect, say as contrasted with say sun in um, Mithun, um, first Navamaush, say, which is basically third pada of Mruga nakshatra, say. Okay, so that would have a totally different connotation because the nakshatra Mruga nakshatra is a Mrudu nakshatra, for example. So we need to look at these kind of things, and the nakshatra which effect of nakshatra for immunity is mainly to be looked at for the sun, moon, and the ascendant. Now also Gandanta very important because so I don't we know what is Gandanta. So if there is a um, if the sun, moon, or the ascendant are positioned at the Gandanta, and let's say particularly to note here is the Jeshta Mula, Abhukta Mula Gandanta point. Say last pada of Jeshta, first pada of Mula, really, really vicious. One could certainly expect problems inherited at the time of birth in the chart, which have to do with severely depleted immunity. Okay, so this is something brief I wanted to talk about the ascendant, the sun, and the moon, the trinity. So this could be the first way of looking at first indicators of immunity in the kundali. Now let us look at after this specifically the role of malefics and benefics. Okay, so for sure we need to be looking at that, and let us throw some light on that. Now the slide in front of you. So let's say if you had some robbers trying to attack your estate or your farmhouse, say, what would you want to be? Whom would you want to be present at the main gate? Would you want sort of very pleasant people sitting there, maybe with flower garlands, or would you want some vicious dogs or some seriously aggressive looking watchmen present there? So I'm sure you would like to have tough people there to avoid getting robbed or getting infiltrated. Okay, so malefics are the first line of repulsion. So malefics are the planets which have to be strong in the chart for a strong immunity. Okay, um, again, malefics in a bad position will damage immunity. So the same security watchman, the same aggressive person, if he starts troubling you inside the house, then you are, the inhabitants will be at risk. So um, if malefics are placed in the kendra, that will be ideal for immunity. Okay, that will confer strong immunity on the native. This is an empirical kind of understanding that I have. Again, cellular immunity is more governed by malefics. So when I talk of malefics, I mean Mars, Saturn, uh, Rahu, Ketu, and um, maybe partly Mercury if afflicted. Okay. Now, benefics, which are basically Jupiter and Venus and the Moon. Okay. A moon we have already dealt with, so I'm going to be speaking about Jupiter and Venus. So Jupiter and Venus actually provide nourishment to the organism. Okay, um, so they provide the overall, let's say, the support, the overall um, surround sound, let's say, for a smooth kind of immunity. So this is what we call humoral immunity. Now let us try to understand the benefics and malefics in a little bit uh, more relevant manner to Ayurveda. Now in Ayurveda, typically um, the different tissues or the dhatus are formed as a result of the interaction of the Panchamahabhutas, okay, with the doshas and the malas. So the Panchamahabhutas are subject to the doshas. The Panchamahabhutas, we are already aware what they are: Prithvi, Jala, Vayu, Agni, and Akash. These are the Panchamahabhutas, and they are subject to the uh, doshas. So the three doshas: Kapha, Pitta, Vata. Okay, and while they are subject to the three doshas in the body, what the whole activity, the metabolic activity which is underway, creates also malas. There are mala. Mala as in products of excretion. If this is everything is properly regulated, then the tissues of the dhatus are formed, and they are namely rasa, rakta, mausa, meda, majja, asthi, and shukra. So rasa is the tissue fluid. Okay, so that is under the control of Venus, very broadly. Okay, uh, Rakta is the entire the blood system, the circulatory system, which traditionally is um, Mars, Sun as well. Mouse, mouse means the muscular tissue, which is under Mars. Meda, Meda is adipose tissue or fat, which is under the regulation of Jupiter or Jiva. Majja. Now Majja here is both blood cells as well as bone marrow. So this is more like from where the cells are produced. So it's very important for cellular immunity. Remember, we spoke of cellular immunity earlier, and therefore Majja is under the control of again Sun and Mars. Asthi means bones. Uh, the mineral kingdom under the Adhipatya of Shani, and then Shukra. Shukra is actually the end product of entire dhatu system, and Shukra would be more like more like connected perhaps with the outer planets. Okay, now um, having said that, let us speak a little bit about Rahu and Ketu. Now Ketu is, they say, Kujavat Ketu. So Ketu acts like Mars, but while Mars creates trauma and injury, Ketu also creates suffering. Okay, so the suffering part is because of Ketu in terms of and in terms of immunology or immune system, the karmic deficit. So basically a congenital or inborn immune disorders, you can find the role of Ketu. That somebody is born with some kind of deficiency of immunological type. So that would be Ketu. Now Rahu, we need to understand Rahu has two things. One is Rahu has got enormous appetite, so it wants to grow. So anything which is excessively, so excessive immune response. Okay, for example, we know that somebody gets a injury on the chest, or let's say a cut on the chest, and then there is a massive keloid, like a skin lesion, which becomes uncontrollable and which ulcerates and things like that. So that's an excessive immune response. Any excessive immune response in the body would be, would be Rahu. This also includes, for example, conditions like lymphoma and all that, which are precursors of malignancies. So, blood related leukemias, lymphomas, and all, they would begin with the disease process would begin with the Rahu aspect always. Rahu is also poisonous. Remember, Rahu is poisonous. So it's like the Visha principle. So anything which is like an immune response pertaining to a infection, say, or a snake bite, or some bee sting, you know, some sudden kind of allergic reaction would be under the control of Rahu. Saturn is the planet of chronicity, is the planet of gradual disability, debility, and for example, one I can give one example of Saturn, that Saturn is certainly involved in all cases of tuberculosis, because tuberculosis is a chronic immune response disease. Okay, and Mercury is accomplice for all things noble and all things ignoble as well. So Mercury is accomplice, and Mercury particularly governs communication between cells. Okay, it's quicksilver. It is those synaptic connections. It is communication between cells. It also governs the neurological system. Okay, so to that extent, it plays a role uh, wherever it is required. Okay, now with this background, um, I want to discuss something very important now, which is the next level in terms of understanding immunity in the body, and again the astrological correlates of that axis. So we are talking here of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, okay, and the outer planet. So let me explain. Now we have all heard of the gland, pituitary gland. Okay, the pituitary gland, it has always been there in school, even in school biology. For those of us who went to medicine, we studied it in greater detail. For those of us, we know that pituitary is a master gland, which means it controls all functions of the body. So it will also control aspects of the body like generalized growth. So you have growth hormones, you have different hormones. It controls the thyroid glands, it controls the adrenal glands. Okay, it's also important for reproduction. Okay, so it controls the functions of the testes and ovaries. It's totally a master gland. Okay, you have heard of this thing that pituitary dwarf. So somebody's growth hormone was less at birth, and the person became a dwarf. So even normal height, everything, so the entire body functioning is basically under the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland is basically part of the hypothalamus. Now, hypothalamus is a part of the brain, let's say it is the lower part of the brain, uh, but it's very important in terms of it has the pituitary gland, and the main planet controlling, or the main graha which controls the pituitary gland, is Uranus. Now, this has been empirically studied. There are references to this in various medical astrological sources, and um the point to note here is that all these different hormones which the pituitary gland produces, or the hormones which are produced by the um, target targets of the pituitary gland. So pituitary gland, for example, um, st- provides a hormone which stimulates the thyroid to release thyroxine. Okay, so thyroxine is a hormone. Okay, thyroxine is a part of the endocrine system of the body. The the pituitary gland will secrete a hormone called ACTH, which stimulates the adrenals to secrete epinephrine, norepinephrine. So these are again important hormones which are responsible for blood pressure monitoring. Okay, now all these different hormones, this endocrine system is under the control of Venus. So therefore, Uranus can be looked upon like a higher octave of Venus. Okay, so if and all these hormonal glands, these glands which secrete the hormones, basically they are responsible for what is called as humoral immunity, or antibody based immunity, or acquired immunity, as we have already seen in earlier slides. So therefore, Venus is involved in acquired immunity. It's a benefic. You remember I told you benefics are looking at humoral immunity, and it is controlled by the pituitary gland, which is under the adhipatya of Uranus. So Uranus Venus axis is very important. And uh, now the point to note here is that there is another outer planet called Neptune, which also plays a role here because it controls what is called the pineal gland. Okay, and so if the pituitary gland is about the body, so the pituitary gland hormones are acting on the body. So at the level of the body, okay, what is acting at the level of the soul, what is acting at a higher level, okay, so that is the pineal gland. So the pineal gland is and the pituitary gland are actually not too far from each other. Both of them are, you can say, they are located in the walls of the third ventricle. So this is difficult for me to explain to you a little bit, but I'll still try. In the center of the brain there is a cavity called the third ventricle. At the lower end of the cavity in front is the pituitary gland. Behind in the cavity above, is the pineal gland. So technically we call it antero-inferiorly in the third ventricle is the pituitary, postero-superiorly in the third ventricle is the pineal gland. Now the pineal gland, and in between the third ventricle is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. So there is a communication channel between the pineal and the pituitary gland. Okay, now the pineal gland basically represents Neptune. Okay, and Neptune is a higher octave of Jupiter. Okay, so Neptune's sign is Pisces, and Jupiter's own house is also Pisces. So it's the higher octave of Jupiter. So Jupiter is Jiva again. So therefore, the gland is looking at the Jiva aspect from a little bit like a Sakshi consciousness, like a witness consciousness perspective, and the pituitary is more concerned with matters corporeal, matters of the body. Okay. Now, having said this, one important additional point I want to make is that uh, extreme large or enormous amount of antibodies are produced from the gut or from the gastrointestinal system. The gastrointestinal system in human beings is loaded with bacteria with which we have a symbiotic relationship. That means these bacteria, what we call bacterial flora, they don't harm us, but they live. Millions and trillions of bacteria live in the gastrointestinal tract of human beings, and they along with the cells of the intestines, there is a continuous interaction and they produce a lot of antibodies, and that is what is called as gut level immunity. It's very important because we are ingesting a lot of stuff from outside, and a lot of unwholesome, unhealthy material is going into the gastrointestinal system. So there is a need of a first line of very strong first line of defense, which is provided by the gut immunity. Now, this gut immunity has a biofeedback mechanism with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which means it gives a it gives a feedback to this axis, which then regulates further hormones which control it. Okay, so therefore, the last, if you see the last line in this slide, it says, thus HPA is responsible for humoral immunity through hormonal regulation. HPA is hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Humoral immunity means antibody or acquired immunity. Okay, so this is what I wanted to tell you about immunity, and I hope this was interesting in some sense. Um, uh, I do admit that I have attempted to cover a lot of concepts in one presentation, but the nature of the domain was such that it needed, in my perception at least, this kind of a discussive treatment. I'm happy to be answering your questions, queries. If you have anything which is unclear, please write to me. Please write a comment. I promise to respond to each and every comment. Okay. Thank you so much, and I leave you with one of my earlier quotes. Okay. I was a little bit too lazy to change this quote today. I just thought this should do well. Um, Okay, so again from Homer's epic poem Iliad. Thank you so much. If you like my work, kindly write a comment, and look forward to my next videos. Thank you so much. Bye.